Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are here to do the Friday Night SmackDown, which took place on June 20th in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Have an absolute boatload of information to go through, so let's go ahead and get started. We kick the show off with LA Knight, who comes to the ring, says he's tired of the back and forth between himself and Seth's faction, and that we're going to end this once and for all. He then invites Seth Rollins out to the ring, but instead gets Paul Heyman, of course. Heyman tells LA Knight that he needs to get out of town before something really bad happens. Enter Braun and Bronson, and surprisingly, LA Knight's able to successfully fend them off for now. But due to this, we found out later in the night that all this makes a match with Bronson Reed and LA Knight later on in the night. So we will get to that a bit later. We then get into our semifinals on the Queen of the Ring side between Alexa Bliss and Asuka. Yeah, what more to say about this? This was a fantastic match, I think, as we would expect with the two women in the ring. This is awesome chance. And yeah, Asuka ends up getting the win. And I think that's the right call. I think Alexa has other things on her plate right now and has tons of ways she can take her story at this point. So I don't really think, and losing to Asuka, I don't think is really at the end of the day is going to deter someone's momentum in any sort of fashion. So yeah, I think Asuka winning here is the right call, and so she'll get the winner of Jade and Roxanne at Night of Champions. So kicking things off with what was supposed to be the men's match was between Kit Wilson and Aleister Black. But before we can even start the match, R-Truth comes back and hits Kit Wilson from behind and demands Cena get out here for his match now as Aleister Black is making his way down to the ring. So I think a bit of a weird segment. Obviously, Truth is impatient, wanting to get his match going. But the officials came down and, formerly known as Jamie Noble, ended up talking him down and, gets him out of the ring. And that's that. And that's the end of the segment. Aleister Black obviously didn't take too kindly to this and later shows him, asking him why he's getting involved in his matches. So a bit of an odd segment there, but I think the takeaway being Truth just couldn't wait for his match, but he ends up having to do so anyway. We then get a Cody Rhodes segment where he is in the ring. But before he's able to get a single word out, Jey Uso joins him, and then Sammy and Randy. So clearly the point here being all four of the semifinalists on the King of the Ring side are here. And they each kind of go about, why they are going to win. And to me, I think Sammy makes the best case because he obviously, I think in terms of promo, cuts the best promo out of the four of them anyways. But, it feels like he's really behind this. So this basically starts our match, our semifinals match between Randy Orton and Sami Zayn, who, similar to the women's side, was always going to be good. And, it went the distance. It got plenty of time and plenty of plenty of guys getting thrown into the table. That damn announce table never breaks now, which is a shame. That was always a nice spot, but not anymore, it seems. They have been hyping up that reinforced announce table, and it doesn't budge. Maybe saving that for the big moments, I suppose. Anyways, the outcome of this match, I think, will probably share the same feelings here, but Sami Zayn did not get the win, unfortunately. I guess Randy Orton is tagged the winner here. And another interesting dynamic here is all four of these guys are pretty much faces. Randy Orton being as much face as he'll ever be. He'll always have that viper in him, so to speak. But KP, yeah, first half of SmackDown and what an action-packed one it was. Thoughts on what we've seen so far?
Yeah, I mean, you've covered it pretty well. I think, starting off with LA Knight and then obviously Seth's Goons, if you want to call it. It's the right sort of tone, I think. When it comes to this group, they tend to just sort of like operate in the same, regard with every single appearance they make. And it's just target someone, take them out, and, cost them their opportunities. And obviously, this wasn't a match per se, but LA Knight's been up in the business of Bronson and Braun recently, so yeah, it started off with a little bit of a personal standpoint, I suppose we could say. But yeah, I mean, Knight being able to hold them off for now was quite interesting. Even with the steel chair, I thought that was quite important for LA Knight. But yeah, I don't really have any real criticisms from this particular opener. But the match obviously being put for later on between LA Knight and Bronson Reed, we'll talk a little more about the situation when we get there. Asuka winning against Alexa Bliss to qualify for the Queen of the Ring final. Yeah, I was quite happy with the decision here. I wasn't entirely sure which way it was going to go. But I suppose with everything that Alexa Bliss kind of has going on alongside this, I think my head's more sort of interested in what's going on with all that right now. I don't think she needs to be the Queen of the Ring per se. Someone like Asuka, who obviously has been out for so long, with like various things, there's obviously been on her plate. To have her come back and to get 2 big wins, back to back in 1 week, I think just it's a great return for her. So yeah, absolutely over the moon to see her just being put back into a good position. So yeah, we'll see what happens in that other Queen of the Ring semi-final between Roxanne Perez and Jade Cargill, and then obviously we'll see if Asuka can get the victory at the Queen of the Ring final. But yeah, I enjoyed the matchup, and I think I would agree with you as well. It was the right call to have Asuka win. Going on into that next segment, this made my head turn a few times because I wasn't entirely sure why and like what the merit of this whole particular segment was going to be. Obviously, the plan was never to have Aleister Black and Kit Wilson have a match. Elton Prince being injured as well. Hope for a swift recovery for him and that he's going to be back into action sooner rather than later. But yeah, when it comes to this whole segment, I was a little bit weirded out by it because Aleister has his entrance, he's coming on down, and then Truth attacks Kit from behind with Aleister just standing there like, okay. It just felt really awkward, felt a little strange. Afterwards, there was that little bit of conversation between Truth and Black backstage. You had Damian Priest coming on in just to sort of like try and play peacekeeper, I guess you could say. And yeah, there wasn't really much progression from that. So it just felt a little bit strange, just the presentation of Black and then to have him not have a match and then there's a little bit of sort of like a squaring up between the two of them. I don't know, it just sort of it left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, and I get it. Truth obviously had a very different change of personality recently, but yeah, I don't know. It seemed to come at a cost here, and I wasn't particularly too happy about that one. The match and aforementioned promo segment between Cody, Jay, Sammy, and Randy. I guess you could take out Cody because he didn't actually say an entire word during the whole thing, which is quite interesting. So they had Cody come out there to stand there and to be spoken to, not to speak to anybody. But yeah, I think everyone who did have their say, made some compelling takes. Sammy continues to just tease me personally, with a world title run at some point down the line. Unfortunately, it's not going to be this time, as you said, because Randy Orton to get the victory over Sami Zayn just after this. But yeah, I guess Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes seems to be the direction that we're headed in here. I guess Cody will beat Jay on Monday on Raw, which will set up that match, which, to be fair, a lot of people have wanted. I think people probably would have hoped they would have been a heel Orton against Cody, who was the champion at the time. But yeah, maybe this is perhaps like a little taste of what we could get maybe sometime next year or possibly down the line later this year. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. But yeah, Randy Orton winning, I personally do disagree with, but maybe better things are coming up for Sami Zayn at some point down the line eventually. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, big time match. Randy versus either Cody Rhodes or Jey Uso. We'll have to see what happens on Monday Night Raw. But so far, decent first half of SmackDown. Just that little bit of a weird one with Aleister Black. That's my only main criticism so far.
Well, I'm glad we're on the same page with the truth segment there. I too was just like, kind of, what's the point? So I guess if we're all on the same page, and it's no big deal. And I didn't even notice the Cody not saying a word bit. I think the other three just kind of being so fiery, maybe I just didn't realize. I don't know. That was a good point brought up there regardless. And yeah, I think the big question for me with Sammy is he going to give in to Cross at some point? I think that's an interesting angle there that they're clearly heightening. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from there. But let's go ahead and move on with Friday Night SmackDown. And the next segment we have between Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax, who that's grand takeaway here being setting up a match for next week. Tiffany putting her title on the line against Nia Jax in a last woman standing match, ending this rivalry once and for all. Right after the match is announced, Nia then takes out Stratton. Um, but lays her out pretty good. And as Nia is defending her actions to the announce team, Naomi makes her way down to the ring swiftly and quite elegantly, I might add as well. It's pretty smooth. But as she's getting in, Nia then sees her trying to cash in, and then of course pulls Naomi out of the ring. So continuing that whole bit as Naomi does not end up cashing in. But yeah, interesting dynamic between the three here. And you have to say, and I think announce team said it as well, with the last woman standing match, the writing's on the wall. Maybe it's too obvious, but is Naomi going to take that opportunity? That's a pretty brutal match. So yeah, lots and lots of things to talk about for next week's SmackDown. So that one in particular, looking forward to. We then get a Charlotte versus Chelsea Green match, which for some reason I don't know why this one just took me off guard. Just one of those matches I didn't think I'd see. But anyway, getting the match and given plenty of time, maybe surprisingly, I guess to my point, I kind of figured Charlotte would just squash, and I think we've kind of hit on this recently, and I think Charlotte's kind of turning a page, so to speak. She's not dominating, not taking every opportunity, not winning every opportunity. And it feels like slowly but surely the crowd's kind of turning in her favor. I think that's kind of what she needed. And I think I've said that since day one on her return, when she won something right away and booed as trying to be a face, which never made sense to me anyways. But if they are going to continue to do that, this is what they need to do. Make sure that she doesn't win everything, dominantly and, always. But yeah, Chelsea, I think got more of the offense in here. And I think, in my opinion, walks away looking like the better wrestler here, which is just crazy to think in a match with Charlotte. Obviously, the Secret Herberts were heavily involved, and so that helps Charlotte with the babyface angle as well. And then, pretty much before she even gets the figure eight locked in, Chelsea does end up tapping, and then the Secret Herberts obviously then attack Charlotte. And then when Charlotte's being attacked, Alexa Bliss comes down to aid Charlotte, but Charlotte does absolutely nothing to acknowledge this. So, continuing that kind of alliance maybe to be, clearly kind of playing the part they both need each other, or at least that's their mindset. So another interesting angle to see where they take that one from here. We then get Solo in the middle of the ring, and he's asking Jacob to join him so they can clear the air. Solo tells Fatu that he loves him, and he always has. Fatu says that the only reason that Solo brought him in was for the fame and gold. And now that Fatu has the gold, I think that's the issue, or at least that's Fatu's understanding of it. Fatu offers his title if he wants to fight for it. And then, of course, this ends up in a brawl between JC and Big Jem joining on the side as well. So I think this is what we're all kind of expecting, finally getting it at Night of Champions. So I can't wait to see that. That should be a great one. Not pictured here because we just had too many things going on, but we then did get an LA Knight versus Bronson Reed match, which was set up earlier by Aldis due to the back and forth of these guys. And yeah, this is more back and forth than I kind of thought it would be. Bronson Reed wasn't super dominant, I didn't feel like, but LA Knight also got some incredible reactions from the crowd, as he has been recently. It feels like some reason, maybe just going up against that heel faction instead, that we're just really, really ramping up LA Knight. Makes you think maybe the wrong person won that briefcase, but LA Knight is certainly making sure that his presence is being felt. Yeah, although this was a back and forth enough match for when it was going on, Breakker does end up spearing LA Knight to end the match. I think he had 2 spears and 3 tsunamis from Bronson. Obviously, the spears being from Braun. But yeah, I understand why LA Knight wanted his revenge. But obviously, anyone who stands up to this faction right now, it's not going to end well for you. So, unfortunately, LA Knight, if it's anything similar to what happened to Seth when he ate those tsunamis from Bronson, I'm starting to wonder if now maybe LA Knight will be out of action for a while. So I think that's a bad call because of kind of how I mentioned how over he is right now. But also, I guess you could also play the card if he is out for a while and then comes back and gets his revenge. Obviously, that'll be a great story too. So we shall wait and see. But interesting angle here. Obviously, LA Knight stood up for himself. I guess there's that. But obviously, at the end of the day, it was Seth's faction who ended up standing tall. And then we get to the main event, which is R-Truth versus John Cena. Unfortunately, the match didn't get a ton of time. Looking forward to, which kind of tricked me because of the amount of time that was left in SmackDown. I thought we were going to get a good drawn out match. I won't complain, however, because as the match was cut short due to interference, John using his title once again. Why not make the match no interference? But regardless, we do get a payoff. CM Punk comes in almost immediately, and for his troubles, John ends up slamming him through a table, giving him an AA through a table, and then cuts his version of a pipe bomb promo. And what more can I say? This promo was pretty incredible. I don't really see how you could make it out not to be. But I will just say, if you haven't watched it, please do go watch it because it is great, and you could walk away thinking so many things from this. But for me personally, it feels like we're kind of slowly changing the dynamic between this rivalry. I think Cena obviously being the huge heel, but walking away from this promo not feeling so heelish, getting more chance than booze and John Cena sucks. So interesting to see how much they'll delve into that dynamic or if they will at all. But regardless, I think this is one of those promos that will go down, in our memories for a long, long time. This was great. So yeah, I've rented quite a bit, but again, a lot of information. KP, tell us what you think about this last half of SmackDown, and what did you take from that last promo there from John Cena?
Yeah, so the second half of SmackDown, I think it basically just sort of like continued a nice sort of pace comparison, well, compared to that of the first half. Yeah, with Tiffany Stratton being in the ring and that massive, last woman standing match being announced. Yeah, very keen. Obviously, we're against Nia again. So it's one of those situations where this seems to be like everlasting almost. But this, like you said, this should be the last. This should be the end. And we shouldn't be going back after this. You don't just put a last woman standing match in for them to just transition back to this in another 3 or 4 months time. Well, 2 months time, maybe, whatever. But yeah, regardless, yeah, good way to end this. I'm liking the sounds of it. And yeah, you've always got that the little asterisks hanging above with Naomi and the Money in the Bank contract. So that could be very telling. Could be quite interesting to see if that's going to play a part. If it's going to be cashed in, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But yeah, definitely keen to see how that one takes place. Straight off the bat, I'm liking it. Keeping up with the women's stuff, Charlotte and Chelsea. Yeah, I enjoyed the match. I thought it was a quite interesting one to watch. Like you said, Chelsea got a lot of offense in, and that was nice to see. We've seen a lot of Chelsea Green in the past, where she's been sort of like a bit more of a wimpy side of a character. And I think she didn't really seem to have too many problems with this match. Obviously, she had her typical complaints, but nothing too crazy. She basically just gone on with it. And yeah, she got into the match, and then obviously Secret Service at the end, laying out Charlotte. That little interaction / non-interaction with Alexa Bliss. Charlotte just walked straight past her. These two have been sort of like alongside each other here and there for the past number of weeks. I really don't know where this is going. I'm trying to figure it out on the way there, but I'm not really getting any solid, direction as to where it's going 100%. But it's definitely got me interested as to where they're taking it. So I'm seated and yeah, I'm keen to see what exactly does materialize from all of this. But yeah, for now, I'll just sit back. I'll just wait, see what happens. I guess, and I'm cool with that. Yeah, the segment between Fatu and Solo I thought was fantastic. Two guys who, obviously been through a lot recently, and the change of dynamic now, and maybe Solo trying to suck up to Fatu, whether that was his true intentions or not, it didn't look like it actually was. He'd go to attack Jacob Fatu even though he put the title on the line, just trying to get that sucker punch in sort of thing. But I thought the back and forth was quite interesting between these two men, because there's been so much history, obviously, of the I love you Solo, and then the I hate you Solo, and I love you Jacob, and there's been an awful lot of that, and obviously now with JC Mateo coming on in, to try and sort of like be the right hand man to Solo Sikoa, there's obviously that heavy artillery for Solo as well. But Jimmy Uso getting back involved is quite interesting too, because he's been a little distant, from all of this really. So yeah, I guess we look forward to a United States Championship match, Jacob Fatu against Solo Sikoa, and I'm definitely keen for that. I think that's happening at Saturday, on the Saturday show, right? Night of Champions, if I do remember correctly. But yeah, I'm keen for it. I love the segment, was a big fan of it, and yeah, glad that we're going to be getting this one to take place very, very soon. Yeah, that match straight afterwards, obviously, LA Knight and Bronson Reed. I think it's just another one of those DQ finishes. You got Bron Breakker, you got Bronson Reed. All the situations with that, it's always these DQ finishes. And I know we both talk about this a lot because it happens a lot, so it has to be mentioned. But yeah, I think at some point they are going to have to try and figure out another way to do it, because we can't be the only people complaining about this, surely, right? Just get another type of finish, pop that in every now and then, so you don't have the same DQ finish every single week. That's all I'm asking for, really. So that's not too much to ask, I don't think. But it was pretty brutal, the decimation of Knight after the bell. Those multiple tsunamis, a couple of spears. Knight could be out for a little while here. We have to see how long he's going to be out for. Probably missing the Saudi events next week, and then returning afterwards when they're back in the States, perhaps. But yeah, brutal. But I guess it sort of like elevates Bronson and Bron a little bit more, which is, obviously what they want to be doing. The main event / last segment, whatever you want to be calling it. Yeah, this was kind of crazy. Obviously, you've got R-Truth defeating John Cena via disqualification, which, I feel like they just basically just brushed over straight afterwards with the whole CM Punk and Cena stuff. But the way that Cena just put CM Punk through the table was with such ease. Obviously, hitting him over the head with a title a couple of times would do that. But yeah, then when he grabbed the mic, he went up to the top. Then he was just like, Punk was just lying there like against the table. I was literally thinking like, I remember when Punk did this to Cena a number of years ago, except that obviously he was sat on the stage. But I didn't actually think they would try and do a Cena pipe bomb. So this was really, really cool. I think a lot of people have been complaining that Cena says the same or similar stuff every single week. I'm a big Cena fan. I'm really enjoying his work at the moment, and I really hope that there are a lot of people out there who are a big fan of this particular segment. From what I've seen, there are, which is nice. Maybe people are starting to appreciate this a little bit more so now. But yeah, I think this just sort of like continues to just heighten the situation, and it makes Cena's last year feel special. And this promo segment was absolutely fantastic. There were so many great lines in this that like I feel like I could go on forever. But just want to like look on like some things that we can just particularly just gloss over quickly. Like Cena would start off saying things similar to like, I don't hate you, I don't dislike you, I actually do like you, and I like you a lot more than most people in the locker room. I think there's been obviously a lot of distance that people have from CM Punk since coming back or whatever, whether that's kayfabe or not, obviously you can go from there. But I like that they sort of like bringing that back into the conversation once more. And like he would even say like that he hates the idea that he's the best in the world, because he's just not. Like Cena would say that he's the best. He's actually the best in the world, and the only thing that Punk is better than Cena at is talking nonsense, talking crap, whatever you want to say. But yeah, just like a little line there that was quite nice. He'd also go on to say how good CM Punk is at kissing people's asses and things like that. And he would even go on to say things like referencing his relationship with TKO, and that he is the TKO guy. So like I think Punk is he's been very corporate since coming back, not in like a business suit type way, but he's very much the kind of guy that he seems to be doing all the corporate shenanigans and like the public appearances and whatnot, and like doing the right things, being a yes man type persona. And I feel like that really came out in like a true color here during this particular segment. But Cena would even start mentioning people who weren't in WWE anymore. He actually mentioned the likes of Claudio Castagnoli, Nick Nemeth, Dolph Ziggler, and Matt Cardona, who's obviously Zack Ryder. So people can obviously theorize as to what their name drops meant with this one, and I don't think we'll ever be told the reason. But it was very, very interesting and telling just to hear names from other companies, TNA and AEW in this case, being brought up in this particular promo. I'm not going to go too much more detail because I feel like I could go on forever. But yeah, the segment was fantastic. It was really, really great, and I think that it was just one of those promos that you never try and replicate the original, but this one I think will stand alone as Cena's pipe bomb, and I think we can all just leave it like that. It wasn't necessarily aiming to be greater than Punk's, but it was like a just a throwback and maybe like Cena's way of saying, you know what, you can do one, well, I can do one too. SmackDown was fantastic. This was a really, really good show. Maybe a couple of little lows throughout the entirety, but nothing too particularly massive. I enjoyed it for the majority of the show, and I probably give it an 8 out of 10. I thought it was pretty solid, and things moved along in a great direction, really, for the most of the people involved here. Set the scene quite nicely towards Night of Champions, and as well as just the next week's Friday Night SmackDown as well over in Saudi Arabia. So yeah, 8 out of 10, solid show. Yeah, definitely a big fan of this one.
Yeah, I don't want to tell you how to do your ratings or anything, but I feel pretty confidently that if Sami Zayn had won his match, which I think was the biggest letdown for me, I think we're talking close to a 10. I for one gave it a 9. Again, yeah, similar to you, I would have preferred Sami Zayn had won. But regardless, maybe Cody and Randy Orton isn't too bad either. But yeah, this was essentially, I think, a go home show for Night of Champions, because next Friday's episode is going to have 3 title matches. And interestingly enough, I think it's going to be like a pre-show to Night of Champions, because on that show they have announced the Tiffany Nia Jax match, and then the United States title as well, Zelina and Julia. And then the Wyatt Six, after winning that one match against MCMG, are now getting a title shot against the Street Profits. So certainly living up to the moniker Night of Champions, I suppose, over the weekend, with those 3 matches the night before. And then on Saturday, obviously, Night of Champions is looking pretty good as well, with King of the Queen of the Ring finals, in addition to Jacobs and Solo, and of course John Cena and Punk. So lots to look forward to. But yeah, next week of wrestling should be pretty entertaining. And yeah, 9 out of 10, like I mentioned, for this one for SmackDown. So yeah, tons of material to go over. Unfortunately, this one probably did go a little bit long. But these SmackDowns are just but hey, as long as they're good like this one, and we're progressing storylines, and we're having pretty decent matches, you won't hear a single complaint from me about the time. So with that, this has been another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. And until next time, we'll see you then. Take care.